I mean, I don't expect anything different if you're a Christian. This is definitely something you would say. This would definitely be your belief system. If you're a Christian, it would have to be because you're a male supremacist. So if you don't have kids, then you're worth nothing in life, right? The thing that's so offensive about this is not even the dude saying this, okay? It's the people on the Dem side that seem to forget how systemic this actually is and how it actually affected me. And I actually brought it up on Twitter. And what year was that? 2008. Oh my God. Can we do some math here? How many years ago was that? Oh my God. 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. Like 16 years ago. Is that it? I'm like, is that? Yeah. You know what I brought up, you guys? The systemic problem of our state right here that refused to give aid or help women that did not have children. And I had this problem and I put it forward to the public. I go, I'll be damned. They said all the rich donors refused to give cash aid to single women without kids. And it went straight to women who were total meth addicts with their drug addict son. It was totally insane. I was like, yeah, the family that's missing teeth over there. So yeah, they got the help. So all the single women that were totally, they're probably running away from domestic violence, some human trafficker, the police with their bullshit. Okay, so we're talking about all that stuff. And it was during this government misconduct on me that I went through this system like crazy. And I was like, I can't even believe this shit is going on. And so we're going to make something positive out of something that was government's hate crime on women. And so government's in bed with Christian male supremacists because our government is a male supremacist. But the annoying thing, as I just said, the people in our state are mostly Democrats, right? But just because they're Democrats doesn't mean that they're not Christian. No, they're Christian and they're psychotic. And they believe to not help women without children, nor to give medical to women without children. What was that Medicare thing about? Oh, yeah. So we have bullies like Jennifer Aniston, all these rich damn women that wouldn't even go through this system to even know that information. And so they just sound stupid. It's just like, well, none of y'all had a problem because I brought it up. I said, what were the things that they were helping with, right? You had to be a drug addict. Okay, well, you could lie and say you are, but that's probably not a good thing to do to get help. What was the other thing? Say you're mentally ill. That was the top one that people lied about to get aid. Yes, so it actually skewed the data on who was out there, and I already knew this for a long time. So because there was no other resources, you only had a few choices, and if you wanted to get help with something, you could say you're any of those things. And trust, there were people who were mentally ill out there, yes, but it skewed the data because in this story, these were the only options, okay? Women with kids, so all we care about is your children. Women without kids, F you from domestic violence, like you're nuts or something. You got to say something, otherwise we won't do shit for you. Or you were an illegal alien, which they had the immigration people coming out and helping those people. You had the Vietnam vets. You had the vets, okay? So those people had other people coming out to help them. And then drug addicts. So you'd have to admit that you're a drug addict. And the only way that they would help you is if you allowed them to throw you into a sober house. So those were the only options, guys. I don't believe there was any others. That was it. Those 5 things or so. So who got left out? I don't know, but the guys that were out there, what's the excuse for that? They couldn't find a job? I mean, I don't know, but even still, right? They didn't fall into this category, and it was basically under if you did not have children, females did not have children, they did not help. And so the rich people in the state that did the donations to go help them get homes, so the only people that could get a home were women with children. So they basically got kind of rewarded on top of it. I was like, I swear to God, like if you want to get out of that situation, go pop a kid. It was almost like saying like that. Not that women were doing that, but I'm saying it's almost like, well, if you don't have any other option, Maybe if you go have a kid, you can get health care and fucking get a fucking home. This is what the state did. Where did this come from? This is a very long systemic history of male supremacy. And the women actually believed it because in order for donors to be putting money into something, they obviously believed that women with children were the most important and everybody else should die. And so I brought it forward to the public and I get fucking totally trashed. Okay. And then they erased everything, right? So you guys don't even get to hear it, right? So I have to hear these rich white women who don't have kids like, oh, they have a problem with somebody saying this. This is very different from somebody just saying something that hurts your feelings. The thing is, this is something that actually was taking place in through the government by action. There was a whole bunch of other people totally offended by it. But me, I'm just like, I love cats. I was like, I love cats, not like a piece of shit like child predator dog men. I was like, whatever. And the child is cat lady. So this dude also wanted women to pay more for tax. That guy could eat, you know what? Actually, being without kids, you have less help because even when they give the aid to the women, they actually try to ensure that the women can take care of themselves and the kid versus the woman that has no children where they don't do any of that. It's actually night and day. Vance said on a conservative podcast that childless Americans, especially those in the country's leadership class, were more sociopathic than those with children and made the country less mentally stable. We're just going to ignore like child abuser Eli and the fathers that molest their children. And did you guys read that last story? There was another story where this father just let his son die and he was like dead in the couch for God knows how long and nobody even knew how it happened because he never went to school. Yeah, and the fathers have always been the rapists in most of these stories. The absent fathers, and even when they are present, they've been abusing their sons and daughters. So the true sociopath is the one that abuses children. So, okay. Oh, yeah, and I was talking in some celebrity cases where they had abused, like, the mothers so much that the mothers should have been able to go after the fathers for child rape. But they didn't view it as such back then. And then it caused, like, this weird thing where, like, you know, the sons are not being taken care of and then they turn out psychotic. And then they start promoting to abuse women afterwards and they make a career out of it. Okay, so, yeah, I was like, that's how sociopaths are made. Okay, so, August 2021, one month after launching his candidacy for the Senate, Vance's campaign sent fundraising emails referring to the radical childless leaders in this country following his appearance on Tucker Carlson Tonight. Yeah, so who's the rapist? Because you're forcing rape babies, you're raping everyone. That's a true sociopath. That's the actual definition of a sociopath. So I love it when sociopaths like throw out the term sociopath to somebody else. I mean, what the fuck? Okay, so the comments sparked a widespread backlash against Vance when they resurfaced on social media following his nomination to the Republican presidential ticket. Without going through the rest of this, because it's all garbage, did Megyn Kelly deals with this or what? Vance later tried to clean up his comments on Megyn Kelly's podcast last week. Obviously, it was a sarcastic comment. I've got nothing against cats. Oh my God. Okay, adding that his remarks were not about criticizing people without children, but rather focus on policy and claim the Democrat Party has become an anti-family and anti-child. Yeah, let's put it this way. You're anti-female. You are pro-children to touch them. So, yes, we're anti-children with you having any. So, no, that's just garbage. No, I worry that it makes people more sociopathic and ultimately our whole country is a little bit less mentally stable. If you understand how that comes about, you wouldn't say any of that, you dipshit. And of course you talk about going on Twitter. Final point I'll make is to you to go on Twitter. And almost always the people who are most deranged and the most psychotic are people who don't have kids at home. Oh, that's funny. Okay, so as he's not a science guy, let's see. There could be a couple reasons for this. I was like, It would have to do with that the psychotic is abusing people to not want to bring those kids into this planet. I mean, or making them homeless to where they can't even have a family, or raping the shit out of them. They gotta abort that fucking shit. Or people just can't have them, or they just generally don't want them because people have a life. But becoming a sociopath has nothing to do with having kids or not. But if you have kids, you have a higher chance of creating one, because if you don't have a kid, you're not going to be creating one unless you're watching over somebody else's child, because it's created in that little thing right there. You would have to be in the same household or in the vicinity of a child in order to create that freaking sociopath right there. You are the one right now, which I could tell right now, would create a sociopath. You would create a serial killer. The number one thing that they have been creating is rapists. So that is the most common sociopath that has been coming out of these homes. A rapist. That is the top number one piece of shit that is coming out of Christian homes. Rapist. And we should really point that out, because that is it. Facts versus bullshit. So yeah, I don't know, he says it, but like, I'm not even like, I mean, this is something you expect from that guy, so it's kind of like, yeah, if you're that, you're gonna believe that, and you're an idiot, and you create bad children. But beyond that, the thing is that the Dems that are having this fake outrage believed in this concept because it comes out in the systemic way that it did, where they're like, single women do not deserve medical. They also don't deserve housing. They don't deserve any other program unless you had babies. And that was literally in 2008. And then I called 211, and they actually broke it down to me and actually explained that yes, the high donors, they only pay for women with children. And I go, that's interesting, because that wouldn't be limited to, it wouldn't be limited to Republicans. It is something that was part of the state, and it was part of just the general population of their viewpoint on women as a whole. So they seem to have forgot this. But if you're a rich white woman, you wouldn't even give a shit. And where did you put your money to? So you would know where you put your money to. And it certainly didn't go to single women. So I'm just calling those people out, because we already know this fool exists because he's the major part of the population. But they seem to have a mirror problem about how they actually believed that too, and did. That was also another reason why it was very difficult to rent places singly back in the early 90s to the mid 90s. And in fact, it probably was that way in the 80s too, but I was too young. I wasn't out renting places in the 80s. But yeah, so it was very difficult to rent a place as a single woman. And most of the stories that I've read on women living, they would say they lived on their own, is always like, oh, I moved in with my sister. Oh, my dad did this thing. Oh, this and that and this and that. And in that process, they always had to have either a man help them out, or unless they were like ultra rich, then they could probably get away with some of that. But generally, no, they were always like, where's your husband? Where's your boyfriend? And then they would sit there and try to jack up the rent on the single woman. It was crazy. They were doing this crap the whole time. And then the women that had children that were renting near me, like they would have these like loser boyfriends who would like just grift off them. Like there was a couple I was thinking of in this thing. But at the same time, they were actually getting public aid. So the public aid actually paid for most of their stuff. And so I'm basically paying way more than they do, and they're getting help. And not that I'm hating that the government's helping them. It's just that they left it like that, where I should suffer and then they get that help. So that's exactly the system. And that is the male supremacist, Christian white male supremacist system that we have. And that was in, early 90s. And so they weren't being quite honest when they talk about them being on their own, because there was actually some additions to that. That's why I had to have my dad help me on that one thing. But on the other stuff, no, I did it on my own. And when I was doing that, they were jacking up my rent. Like I had to pay. Whereas, the men that I met paid a third of what I did. It was crazy. I was like, what? So I would ask around, and everybody kept going, it's none of your business. I go, no, it is. Because there's some bullshit going on. And the more you know, the more you're going to hate this country. You shouldn't buy into any of this crap. Not this good side, bad side thing. They're all a pile of shit. Any woman coming out here acting like they're offended by this, they were not offended by it. They were not. They wanted me to suffer, but it didn't, like, harm, like, a Jennifer Aniston. So, you know, up until, you know, it just offends her, then shit. But again, it's about, you're talking about offensive versus actual systemic abuse that actually happened to me in my life. Basically, the rest of this article is him misusing the term sociopath, and it's just stupid. It's just a sociopath misusing the term sociopath. I mean, it is. That's just what it is. Sociopaths are a harm to self and others. A harm to self and others. Keep that in mind. Harm to self and others. Harm to self and others, okay? And they're big time narcissists, and they are, all of them are by default fucking rapists. I would like to say this. There's nothing more positive than a sociopath not having kids, okay? The last thing you want is a sociopath to have children, right? You want a sociopath to have children, and he's actually putting this down. He's all, we've allowed ourselves to be dominated by childless sociopaths because they need to have children. It just doesn't, he's psychotic. He needs to be fucking put away. But the problem is having misogyny is actually part of the PD of sociopathy. So because it's part of the narcissist traits that are being pulled up completely. Because it has to do with the godlike complex of theirs where they think that they were the gifts from God on the planet to lead, and they were supposed to spread their demon seed. I'm like, semen deed, I don't know what the hell. Their demon seed across the globe against everybody's will. That's a sociopath. I mean, no one's anti-family. I mean, I'm anti my own family. But we're anti this. And it's best that somebody who's mentally off kilter to not have children. That's why we need to get them removed from homes of abusive parents, such as Eli holding his kids hostage, whatever he's doing over there. But he also is verbally abusive to children, and he should not have kids just because he thinks it's a cool thing to do for the day. So, I mean, the guy's not a science guy. He's just basically like, I equate this to that, and so therefore it's that. So he's like, I've seen people become more attached to their communities, to their okay, who's the communities? A bunch of Christian lunatics, okay? Because we're not Christian, so I would not be attached to a community of a bunch of lunatics. But, and that's even when I was Christian, you guys. Like, that was the most insane fucking thing that I even went through. And I still think about it going, I don't even know how the hell, okay? To their families, and our families have all been abusive, and just because you guys put on a fake face and your families are molesting their own children, which hasn't really been brought up yet, I keep trying to push the topic, okay, to their country because they have children. Well, the only people that are connected to the country is white men. I mean, the rest of us, it's just we were dragged here against our will, women and people of color, okay? So the people that really love that are the ones that slam that into their children, that's what they should do. And I think at a point when they mature, they kind of realize how everything's a lie. And in my own life, I felt the demons. Okay, now you're talking about demons, and you probably should go to a therapist. Okay, demons that come from a traumatic childhood melt away. Okay, that doesn't happen. That doesn't happen. In the laughter and the love of my own son. Actually, that's scary. And no, it doesn't go away because you have a son and he's laughing. The demons from your childhood are going to be passed on over to your son. And that's how another sociopath gets born. And your traumatic childhood bullshit actually never goes away. Just pointing that out. It's something you have to continually work with. And for anybody to come out here and say it got healed or just went away because of some action in their life is bullshit. So I would say that, wait, so you're going to use having babies as your form of therapy to take that shit out? Trust that son is being raised with some psychological problems, and they're going to be on YouTube in about 10, 20 years talking about it. I was like, yeah, I'm listening to a bunch of guys going on. There's still some that are so off kilter, you guys, that they think it got healed because they found the cult of Elo. Oh God, I found this channel the other day accidentally because there was a singer, this songwriter guy that I was like, oh wow, he's actually really talented, and I go, how down to earth this guy is, right? I was like kind of listening to him, and they did an interview with them, and I was like, this other guy's familiar. And it was so fucking weird. I couldn't like put my finger on it. I couldn't even I didn't even know. So then they brought up something else at the end of it. And I'm like, "Oh, let me go. Maybe I might be interested in listening to that." And I click on it, and there's Ramatha's cult. And I go, "Oh no. Oh no. Oh, ugh. If you guys were mad at Allison Mack, this is their people." So I'm like, oh, they wormed their way up in here to where now the dude's like more famous than ever. The dude that was studying under her. And so all these people think they're being all like, guru-y. We love the word. I was like, I don't even know if that singer-songwriter even knows about that. He may be just totally ignorant because he seems like, I don't know. Like, he just seems like that type that's like, oh, love everyone. This bullshit. I go, yep, you're the one that's perfect to get sucked into the cult. Some crazy shit, you guys, because I know all about those people. But I was like, yeah, I guess the minute that you see like Goldie Hawn floating around, it's probably the sign it's a cult. I was like, I don't know why, but it's not that thing. That Allison Mack is not going to fall into that shit ever again. But she's the only one that gets in trouble, But it's like, I'm sitting here watching this. I'm like, how did that dude, dude, he has 10 million views, you guys. The cult guy? Oh my God. And I was saying, I go, that guy was the one that when I heard him, I go, he's like the least, like, you would think that he's a really smart guy. Like, he's literally, I mean, what could go wrong here? Like, he's that guy. That's why I was like, yep. But he's the understudy of the cult leader, and they believe in, some type of Xenu type god, you guys. It's not I don't know what they call it, but he believes in an energy source. It's a different type of god thing. And, like, I like, for a long time, I was like, yeah, this shit work. Like, I was going through this thing. I told you guys I was studying it. I mean, you're talking eons ago. And then it was like somebody started questioning. Well, I was questioning it like this because this is what posed the question, the deeper questions to the whole thing. So it was like, you convince yourself that those things happen. So the deeper conversation of like, you think these things happen, but you convince yourself of those things happening, and it doesn't, like, the causation isn't, what is it? I have my brain right now. Wait. It's not the thing that caused it, okay? It's just you convince yourself it did. It was going to happen anyway. And then because it so happened to happen, then you become more deeply brainwashed into the thing. And the people that have been more open mentally to all those things are the ones that are actually the ones that fall into cults. And I wasn't there, but there was question. What it was like it's posing questions to try to differentiate what is real and what is our brain kind of making us think is real, and we're just kind of hypnotizing ourselves into it being real. It went there. That's why it was a deeper thing. And so having to question those things, yeah, helped out quite a bit, because then you could start to answer for, oh yeah, they're full of shit, and it wasn't them, and it's not this, and it wasn't because of that. It was just because of XYZ, without getting into that thing, because it really is. Anyway, the cult dude is on there. So this is another cult guy, basically, that's talking, and he's spewing out bullshit that has no relevance to, I mean, you honestly don't want a sociopath to have children. You don't want a sociopath around children. And somebody that's misusing the term sociopath is a sociopath. I mean, it's just somebody who's perverting the topic like purposely for their own bullshit. And that's what's wrong with this. But yeah, they're saying, so he's saying he had a traumatic childhood and it melted away with having his own son. But it wouldn't have happened if you had a daughter, right? Your childhood would melt away, like having the laughter of your daughter, because women are not exactly what you're trying to get, right? You're trying to get the golden son to pass along your fucking manhood throughout, the lineage, which I keep talking about. And they have this entitlement problem, and that's why it turns to that. And then the sons come out effed up, and then they need meds, and then they're just a clusterfuck of everything of the globe. So that's just the truth of it. And then they abuse their daughters. And then you'll get sometimes these monster mommies. And the monster mommies are coming out of abuse. And they are monster mommies to me. And what the fuck? So, yeah, no. None of them should have children. If you had a very traumatic childhood, you should definitely get therapy before you even think of having a family.